Yes, I have been recommended.
7 o'clock, the meeting will come to order. I'm Grace Lesbrance, Cascade Township Supervisor. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee Nordhook.
Here.
Trustee McDonald.
Here.
Supervisor Lesbrance.
Here.
Treasurer Pierce.
Here.
Trustee Kessel.
Here.
Trustee Shipley.
Present.
And Clerk Slater.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Is there discussion or a motion for approval of tonight's agenda?
I make a motion to approve the agenda as presented to us for this evening.
Support.
It's a motion by trustee Shipley, supported by trustee McDonald to approve tonight's agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Presentations, we have none. So that will take us right into public comments. Now's the time to comment on anything on tonight's agenda that's not scheduled for public hearing, but questions about the zoning ordinance amendment are fine too. So please rise, or please state your name and address for record keeping, and if no one, or once we conclude with personal in-house comments, we'll look, see if anyone's virtual.
If anyone via Zoom would like to comment during this public comment, please raise your hand. If you are participating via phone, please dial *9 and we'll wait a few moments. Doesn't look as if anyone would like to comment.
Okay. Article 6, approval of the consent agenda. Is there discussion or a motion?
Shipley makes a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
The motion by trustee Shipley, supported by trustee Kessel to approve the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Article 8, unfinished business. We don't have any financial actions tonight. So that brings us to Article 8, unfinished business. Article 048-2022. At the last meeting, the board directed staff to prepare amendments to a township ordinance that permits deer hunting in Peace Park, archery and crossbow, not gun. And given the potential safety and liability concerns, I think this issue should be a top priority, so I put it on tonight's agenda. Not necessarily for board action, but just to keep the discussion going. Manager Swayze, do you have an update?
So I did have an email conversation with both legal counsel and sent information to our insurance carrier today. So legal counsel is going to review and give us some potential ordinance amendments. Again, the issue is that even the process by which we give out the permits is kind of ingrained in the ordinance. So I think one of the ways we're going to look at it is giving the township board the ability to propagate hunting policies and procedures. That way the ordinance doesn't have to be changed every time you guys want to change something, because it could be a living process, right? We may get through this year and decide that something needs to be tweaked here or there. So, and that insurance was going to get back to us with risk management recommendations. So my hope is that we can bring back a potential first reading of the ordinance at the August 24th meeting, which would give us plenty of time to notice it for a public hearing and do the second reading in August at second reading of the ordinance at our first September meeting, which will allow us to get everything in place for this hunting season. So as long as everything goes smoothly, I think we should be able to work it out for Peace Park this year, and then maybe work on the hunting for the other public properties for 2020.
How many acres is Peace Park?
I believe it's 80 acres.
198.
190?
Burton Park is 80. Peace
Okay.
Park is 198.
Do any board members have any questions or comments?
Thank you for keeping it moving, Ben.
Yeah. And I just had a couple questions that we didn't get to last time. Is the park open to public access during hunting times?
It is.
And do we notice out to residents that when those times are?
I believe that there's notices at the entryway to the parks, but I would have to double check to make sure. But it's written into the ordinance that the park will be open to the public while hunting is going on. So if that's something we wanted to look at not doing, we'd have to change that in the ordinance too.
Okay. Do you know what the township's liability is if there were, heaven forbid, an accident? Or exposure?
Soon enough, because we've sent all those questions to our carrier, so
Okay. All right, let's keep it on top of the agenda. Thanks, Ben.
no problem.
Item 051-2022, new business. Director Hilbrands, before we open it for public hearing, welcome and thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. I'll just give a little staff an update on this for everyone here. So for your review tonight, I propose amendments to the zoning ordinance to allow for commercial composting as a special use in the ARC, farmland preservation and industrial zoning districts, and included our number of design standards that the use would then be subject to and would have to meet. Just as a brief recap of how we got here, back in December of 2021, the township received a complaint regarding a worm farm / composting operation located on Whitneyville Avenue. So after this use was reviewed by both the planning commission and the board, it was determined that the composting should not be a use permitted by rights, and so that use should be reviewed further. The planning commission formed a subcommittee to further review the case, and the subcommittee held 4 meetings in April and May with staff and legal counsel present at those meetings. Leslie Abdu from Foster Swift attended those meetings, and she is attending the meeting virtually tonight as well to help answer any questions that the board might have. The subcommittee reviewed information from neighboring communities as well as some information from the state and Eagle to determine if the use should be allowed and what zoning districts. The subcommittee developed the proposed amendments and presented them to the planning commission, which did make a few minor changes. The design standards include setback and buffer requirements, minimum parcel sizes, limits on the size of the operational area, as well as limits on the amount of material being brought to the site and located on the site at one time, among others as well. So the goal of the design standards, including the amendment, are to limit potential negative effects of a composting operation on neighboring properties. As a reminder, these proposed amendments tonight are simply to allow a potential composting operation to apply for a type 2 special use permit, which will then come before both the planning commission and the board for review. The planning commission held a public hearing to review the proposed amendments at their July 11 meeting, and the comments that were received as part of that hearing are included in your packet. After the hearing, the planning commission recommended that the amendments be adopted by a vote of 9-0. So at this time, Wendy Korsnich, who was a member of the planning commission subcommittee, will speak briefly on kind of behalf of that group, and then we can answer any questions that the board might have before the hearing.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm going to try to be, first of all, I have like a sore throat, so I apologize, but I'm going to try to keep this brief. I think a lot of this I'm hoping you've already read through. So if you have any questions, I think that's our main goal, is to answer any questions or
Speak a little more
objections,
into the mic.
any questions or objections that you might have. So just kind of a brief overview. I think Brian did a good job of kind of explaining the process we went through. Just to be honest with you, I think every one of us on the planning commission, when this first came to us, was 100% against it. So I do think that it speaks volumes to know that we took a lot of time to go through this. We heard from businesses that people that currently run these types of businesses. We heard from citizens. We heard from the state of Michigan, from somebody from Eagle did come. Eagle does, they don't regulate them, but they do offer a registration within Eagle for composting businesses. So we did talk to him from the state of Michigan as well. So after going through all of that, we really looked at these businesses just as a whole within Cascade to determine where they would be appropriate, which the majority would be within the agricultural zoning. And then we tried to look at it both ways, from being a business owner, having this type of business, and more importantly, as a citizen in Cascade, how you would feel if this was your neighbor having this type of business and what restrictions you would want put in place. So I know Brian highlighted several of the requirements. I think that a couple of the big things are just the setbacks from not only the property line, but also there's a 250-foot setback from any structure, so that it has to be further away from homes. They can only operate within 30, I think it's 30%, right? 30% of their property. So if you had a 10-acre parcel, they could only have 3 acres of that could be a composting facility. There are buffers between the properties. Just trying to look through quick some things. We mandate that they would have to be registered with Eagle. It's a state body, so they don't regulate a ton. But we did request that they have to be registered, which in the state of Michigan, not every composting facility has to be registered with Eagle, but we tried to go above and beyond and have them registered with Eagle. In addition to that, we requested that they have to come back to the Planning Commission and report back to us yearly for a minimum of the next 3 years. That is also going to be open to public comment. So for the next 3 years consecutively, and we can continue that further if there are any problems or any issues come up. But that allows any neighbors to bring any concerns that they may have too, that might not have been there in the beginning, and to make sure that they are operating within any requirements that we put on them. These restrictions are only like a bare minimum. Each applicant would have to come to the Planning Commission and to the board for those approvals, and that we would look at, then it would be open to public hearing as well. So we would be able to hear from any neighbors to know if there are any concerns from anybody's neighbors, to know if there are further restrictions we would have to put on, given the individual property location and neighbors and different things like that. Seeing if there's anything else. We addressed odors. We addressed the type of, if it is a worm composting, to make sure they're native to the state of Michigan, just in case anything does become invasive in the future. We don't want any outside worms brought into the state of Michigan. And one of the big things we restricted as well is the amount of input that they can bring into the facility and the amount of output they can have, which in turn is really going to limit the facility and the operating that they can do. And another one that was a big concern for us was sorting of waste that comes into the property or into the business. We learned a lot about composting, more than I think I've ever wanted to learn. But there is all different types of product that is brought in. A lot of times it's either wood chips or grasses, but then there's also some food waste that comes in that is reprocessed through the worm composting to be able to have that end product. So there's a lot of different things that we limited through each process to make sure that it wasn't too large of a facility. If it gets to be a certain size, then it needs to be moved to a different area. So I think that is kind of the big overview of it, but I think my big question is, if you have any questions or concerns, I think we'd like to be able to talk about them, just because we did go so deep into it. So I'll open it if you have any questions. Yeah. Go ahead.
Was it your intent to have the special use permit for 1 year only and then renew it each year? Or I heard you use the word review. I know in the past we issued a special use permit type 2 and looked at an annual review to, what was the intent there?
I think it was that annual review, and if they're not meeting standards at that review, it could be terminated, or they could be required to come make sure they are meeting their standards. So I think it is for 2, I think it's 2 years. That's how it's written. They come back. So that for 2 years, they're required to come back for that review. And then after that, it's still at the discretion. So if an issue comes up later, we can always request that they come back again. So the approval, I would say, is for longer, but at the annual review, if something there's an issue, they're not meeting standards, then we can cancel that special use permit, or make sure they're meeting what we're requiring them to do.
So they will be required to annually review it, right?
Correct, yep.
Okay.
For the first 2 years and then at discretion moving forward if an issue
Okay.
comes up.
All
And
right.
and also as part of the registering with Eagle, they have to also report to them annually as well. So that's something that will be maintained forever as part of them having it here. So they do need to report. Part of the registration with Eagle is to report to Eagle as well.
Even though you said Eagle didn't require all of them, we can mandate that.
That
Okay.
is
Yep,
part
as
of
one
it.
of our conditions, we'd
Mhm.
still require it and they still
Okay.
have to meet those reporting requirements.
Thank you.
Brian, I have a question. In the presentation, you mentioned additional restrictions if needed. Aren't the restrictions kind of defined by the ordinance themselves? And as an example, what type of a additional restriction could you foresee in worst case scenario?
I can give you an example too.
Yes,
Is I was just,
Oh,
we
that'd be
went through a
great.
ton.
Because I know that we talk about what's in the ordinance, what isn't in the
Yep.
ordinance.
Right, is a neighbor. We talk about buffering between, this house and a business. And if we had neighbors that came and said, well, we want a berm and we want a privacy fence up because we have dogs and we don't want our dogs running over there, something to that effect, we could add those to theirs and make it more specific.
Okay.
Another big thing that we left kind of open in there is the odor mitigation. Currently, we talked a lot about different odor mitigation devices and like a negative ventilation system for that, so that it's pulling outside air into the composting and then it comes through filter systems to be released. We didn't want to limit that though, because technology changes so much that if in 2 years or another year, there's something better than that. So that's another thing that we might limit in the future, is something to that effect. And I
Right.
don't know if you have others.
No, and that's generally it. And that's the nice thing with special use permits is that as part of that review, we are allowed to add conditions of approval. So if there are concerns for a specific, we can look at them on a little by a case basis. And if there's ones in more of a residential area, we can require additional screening or things like that as part of those conditions of approval of the special use permit.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
How would this work with Eagle Creek? Well, this sounds like it'd be the perfect remedy for that one.
They're not a composting operation, but
But special use permits, would this be more of a general special use structure or?
Is it more of an enforcement issue with Egypt Creek?
it is, yeah, more of that one, since it's an existing allowed legal non-conforming use. So it's more of enforcing what is there now and kind of limiting negative effects, I think. I see where you're going with it. I don't know if we could apply this to it.
Brian, this is specifically for composting though, isn't it?
This is,
This
yeah,
one,
the
yeah.
way this one's written, yep.
Can you walk us through so someone's giving an exception that normally is not allowed. Can you walk us through our process as the township level to stay on top of it as far as enforcement and monitoring? So, because it seems like class that you allow you give someone an inch, they take a mile, and then it's how do we stay on top of it, but still put the burden on the person who's
Right, and here specifically, it's written into, especially those first 2 years where they're coming back for review. So we'll have staff, before that review, we'll have staff go out and view the site and make sure everything's in line with what they're telling us, and they're required to provide us with their logs of material and that. And then again, moving forward after that, we have the right, if a neighbor complains, we have the right to bring them back to the planning commission for review, or we can always do periodic site visits and things like that. And then again, they're required to provide those yearly logs to Eagle. And so we can always double check those as well to see if numbers are adding up.
do you calendar things in the new program that we're using? Or how does that work? How do you
Yep,
remember?
Yeah, you could set a yearly reminder. Once it's approved, we'll set a reminder, 11 months in advance that, a month from now, it's coming up for that yearly review.
And right now, and you can say if I'm wrong, we don't currently have any special use permits that we are currently reviewing annually.
Not currently, no. We've done some in the past, but yeah, nothing current.
Current. So I think that there are some other townships that do this, especially on things that could potentially go bad, I guess, or have neighbors, because I think the big thing is the citizens of the township. You know, if you have somebody who is gonna be upset or somebody that moves in later, granted, it's already there when they move in, but then something changes in the future, you want people to have an avenue to be able to come and make a complaint with the ability to do something about it, not just to complain about something and not be able to do anything, which I think is important.
What's the difference between non-conforming and special use? Or are they-
Non-conforming is one that was previously existing, either before an ordinance went to effect or something changed that made a conforming become non-conforming. So all special use permits are legal and conforming because they went through the special use approval process.
Thank you for doing such a thorough job and having a pretty good outcome considering how it started.
I just want to say it was, I think it was a really good process, and I think Brian really did a great job as well. And it was a good chance, I think, for having subcommittees and having our planning director there and legal counsel to really look at something really deep and kind of on behalf of the citizens and on behalf of staff to be able to come together with something that we think will work for the township.
Questions, comments, concerns?
I move we go into public hearing.
Support.
Thank you.
Support.
It's a motion by trustee McDonald, supported by trustee Kessel to open public hearing. All in favor or
Aye.
opposed? We are now in public hearing, so anyone wishing to comment on this, ask questions? Are you guys the Wormies?
Yes. Hello, hi, thank you. My name is Luis Chen. I'm the owner and founder of Wormies, 5745 Whitneyville Avenue Southeast. Yeah, I just want to thank the Planning Commission and the township government for the time that you guys have put towards the understanding of what a composting facility is, and specifically what we are and the difference, you know, and the benefits and the process and all the time that they have put towards understanding what we are about and what we want to do and the benefits of having an operation like ours in the township. And yeah, we're really grateful that you guys took the time, and we're looking forward to having a positive impact in the community. So yeah, I just wanted to express my gratefulness. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chandler Michalski, Wormies, 5745 Whitneyville. I'd like to second that. Thank you all for being willing to take a look at this and give us a special use, because we are a very special composting facility. We're not your average composting facility with huge piles and a bunch of inputs, and like we're not focused on taking waste from everywhere. We're very cautious about what we are taking in, and we're focused on not focused on quantity, but quality, and creating the best compost we possibly can. And so the compost that we do create is some of the best in the country. And like in terms of microbiology, it is just insane. And so like these microbes that we're teaming with are incredibly intelligent, and they're incredibly capable of cleaning up all sorts of toxins and remediating land and adding so much benefit to these neighboring properties like we're talking about. And like we're not your average facility. We're working with worms, and like Brian was just out there today, but if you take a handful of the compost, it smells like the forest floor. It is therapeutic. It is incredible. Like it's not a big stinky operation. We're not focused on making money from picking up as many things as possible. We're focused on creating biocomplete soil that will grow nutrient dense crops, and that's exactly what we need. Our food system is broken because our soil is broken. And this compost is the easiest way to remediate that and to add life back to our soil, to add the biology back to our soil, to mine the minerals from Mother Earth, to create nutrient dense medicine. Like this is important stuff here. Like, very, very important stuff.
I see how you sweet talk to the planning commission and to the, I don't want to make eye contact too much. I want you to be afraid of us still.
Like, I don't think you understand how much value this would add to the township. So thank you very much.
Question for the planning commission, not so much you guys, but So we've got some good people here. We're gonna create an exception. Does this open the door to a slippery slope? Does, with some people who are not so responsible?
Well,
We're
again,
not worried about you guys. We're worried about the next guys.
we review every case on a case-by-case basis. So when we have the limits on size and input and things like that, so we have a lot of control over what we approve where, I think.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I think that, no offense to you guys, but this is kind of a separate, his explanation of what this is, the positives for this, I think is really important to take into consideration. But this truly is just to open the door for these types of facilities, but we will then, they will have to apply for a special use, including Wormies, come before the planning commission and then you to be able to get those approved. So this is just kind of the beginning of a potential, whether we decide if any of them get approved.
So the door got opened a little bit, but then we still as a township can close the door and decide if we want to open it again. It's not just propped open.
Correct. And the door can stay wide open.
Or
but we can
shut.
have you stand in there, keeping everybody out if we want, you know, I mean.
Write that into the ordinance. No, you guys did a really good job.
So it does have to go through, each one will have to go through the planning commission and then up to the board for approval. So, but I think it's important to understand the positives of what we're looking for.
Right, and just to finalize, yeah, you'll probably be hearing from other townships nationwide after this, trying to understand how you guys did it, because we're pretty known nationwide for the type of model that we have. And after this, yeah, they're gonna be thinking, how did you guys do it? So we'll refer them to you.
All right, make us look good and keep the bar set high.
Honestly, like, I think if we work together, we can make this township look incredible. And like, we're teaching children how to compost and the importance of soil health and human health and all that stuff. And like, we can add so much value to this township, like 100%. So thank you once again for being pragmatic and taking our special interest into consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Hi, everyone. My name's Stephen Riddle. I'm a resident of Cascade. I live at 6410 Wendell Street. I've actually purchased products from these guys. I don't really have any affiliation with them, but when I heard they might have an opportunity to bring their operation to Cascade, and I heard that they were coming to this meeting tonight, I just wanted to come down and voice my support for them. The products they are producing is everything they say it is. And if any of you guys have a vegetable garden like I do, I guarantee if you put their stuff on your plants, it's like steroids. My tomatoes are going crazy. I really do recommend them. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone virtually, Ms. Brock?
If anyone would like to make a comment who is participating via Zoom, please raise your hand. If you are participating via phone, please use *9. We'll wait a moment. I don't think anyone would like to speak.
Okay, last call for any other comments or questions? Further discussion or a motion?
I move to close public hearing.
Support.
We got to close.
Not for the public hearing, not to close it. That's a motion to close the public hearing by trustee McDonald, supported by trustee Kessel. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Public hearing is closed. 051-2022 Part B. Now the consideration of the zoning ordinance amendment on the compost issue.
I make a motion to approve the zoning amendment regarding the composting in consideration of the work that's been done, especially by our zoning people.
I support. I'd just like to again add to the planning commission and the Wormies. They really did a good job of defining parameters and conditions, even right down to the content of what can go into the compost pile. So I think we've got a really good ordinance here with a lot of restrictions and parameters. So that's, yeah, I'll definitely second that, John.
It's a motion by trustee Shipley, supported by trustee McDonald, to approve the zoning ordinance amendment regarding composting. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee McDonald,
Yes.
trustee Nordhook,
Yes.
treasurer Pierce,
Yes.
trustee Kessel,
Yes.
trustee Shipley,
Yes.
clerk Slater, yes, supervisor Lesbrunz.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you, commissioners, for all your hard work and thank you for being good residents for me. Hopefully, we'll see, right? Item 052, 2022. Resolutions for streetlight requests for Tamaron North.
Thank you. Bruce Johnson, he is the homeowners president for Tamaron North. You may know it better as Valley Bunyan, which is off of Hall Street. He's been working with Consumers Energy to update the streetlights in the neighborhood. The design and the details are complete now, and the township board has to approve the resolutions and the contract for the work. So there are 12 streetlights, new poles, new fixtures, which will be installed, which will replace the existing streetlights in the neighborhood. The homeowners association is prepared to pay for the cost of the installation of these streetlights up front. That cost is $45,716. So included in your packet is a map with the streetlight locations, 2 change in contract forms, as well as 2 resolutions for the work. The first resolution is for the removal of the existing streetlights. The second resolution is for the installation of the new streetlights. Bruce is here tonight. If you have any questions, he is more than happy to address the board. So.
Sandra, is the annual cost going to become part of the tax bill then?
So that gets put back on the tax bill for the homeowners up there. Yes.
And what about the removal of the existing lights?
This cost covers the removal and installation,
Okay.
and they will take care of that. So.
Is it unanimous with all the homeowners?
Yes, and this has been talked about for the last 5 years or so. One homeowner in particular is passionate about it. He's drummed up enough support that now everyone thinks that this sounds inexpensive compared to replacing the street like we had to do a couple of years ago. So we've already raised the money in the homeowners association dues, and it's just time to refresh it. The other ones are 20 years old and lean and are ugly.
Any questions, discussion, or is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve the request for the Tamaron North streetlights.
Both resolutions?
Yes.
Support.
So that is a motion by trustee Shipley, supported by trustee Kessel to approve both resolutions regarding the streetlight requests from Tamaron North. Clerk Slater, can we vote on both resolutions at the same time? Please call the roll.
Treasurer Pierce,
Yes.
trustee Kessel,
Yes.
trustee Shipley,
Yes.
trustee McDonald,
Yes.
trustee Nordhook,
Yes.
clerk Slater, yes, supervisor Lesbrunz.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
053, 2022, approval of the outdoor gathering permit for Cascade Heritage Festival.
This is year 2 for the Cascade Heritage Festival. This is an event open to the public. It is being relocated this year to the Cascade Christian Church property and the museum property and the park property at the corner of Thornapple River Drive and Cascade Road. Brad Anderson, who is a Forest Hill school teacher, has been heading up the committee. There has been a township staff also sits on the committee, and the pastor of Cascade Christian Church, Joe Fortin. As I mentioned, the event is changing locations this year. The change is just to keep it closer to the downtown area in the museum, and the relocation also allows for the museum to be open during a portion of the event for tours and so forth. So this year there will be a cornhole tournament again. There will be a beer tent, bands, food trucks, ice cream social, and just some light kids activities, no inflatables or anything like that this year like we had at the event last year. So the cornhole tournament will begin at 4 o'clock. The remaining events will begin at 5 o'clock and it will end at 9 p.m. Both Deputy Diapa and Chief Majors are aware of the event and the layout of the event, and the Sheriff Department will have some deputies on site as well to help with just traffic control and street crossings. There will be some additional porta pots, restroom facilities, and hand washing stations on the site. For the public, Cascade Christian Church has 2 parking lots on Hurley Street. Those accommodate approximately 100 vehicles. Hurley Street will be closed. We are requesting that closure from Thornapple River Drive to approximately that first parking lot. And so vehicles to access those 2 lots will have to go down Orange Avenue to Hurley, and they will have access to those lots. There will be volunteers and then buildings and grounds crew to help set up and clean up the event. As I mentioned, a band will play from 5 to 9 on the stage. I believe there will also be another small musical group, maybe a single or duo playing near the historical museum as well. The township insurance policy covers this event. And we are also requesting that the township board consider supporting the event up to $15,000. And that will be used to for event setup, materials, restroom facilities, that type of thing. No township funds will be utilized to support the beer tent or food costs. So we are just looking for approval of the outdoor gathering permit tonight. I don't know if you have anything extra to add.
No, it was just that memo that I passed out before the meeting.
Couple of questions. Sandra, this is likely, and it's a great opportunity, great celebration. It's likely to draw in extra traffic and parking. Have we had an opportunity to talk to some of the adjacent areas that have parking facilities in case celebrants want to utilize those? It's okay.
That's been talked about. I don't know that that has been done yet, but we have discussed that in a committee meeting. So
Yeah, I think that it'd be well to discuss that with those property owners
yeah,
and business
make
people.
everyone well aware.
And one other question I have, Chief Majors, are you okey dokey with all this?
Yes, we are. I sit on the committee and we'll have a medical.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Further discussion or a motion?
I make a motion to approve the outdoor gathering permit for the Heritage Festival. And do we want to talk about the potential for donating to the funding of this at the same time? Or is that going to be separate?
What do you think, Manager Swayze?
It could be at the same time, or if somebody wanted to do it separately.
In that case, in order to save confusion and time, I recommend that we also ante up $15,000 from the general fund. It's half of what we anteed up last year. So it's going in the right direction. Good job, Sandra. That's all I have.
I'll second.
Okay, that's a motion by trustee Shipley, supported by clerk Slater to 1, approve the outdoor gathering permit for the Heritage Festival in Cascade, and 2, approve the expenditures up to $15,000 for that Heritage Day. Before we vote, can I ask a question? DDA, wealthy, has not been approached on this subject, correct?
That is correct. So it will be taken to their meeting on Tuesday night, next Tuesday, for consideration for some funding as well, partnership of some type or some sponsorship.
Should we, I realize there's a motion on the table that has to be voted on first, but should it be contingent, should the general fund be used in the event the DDA fund doesn't? Should we ask them first, then come back? I guess this is more of a question for the board. Thoughts?
I'm comfortable supporting John and Sue's. We've got the general fund to cover these kind of things, and I don't know if there's going to be a great benefit for most of the DDA because, you know, it's just at the edge of the DDA, if you will.
Yeah.
So I'm comfortable with the general fund covering it, especially since, as John said, we did 30,000 last year.
I'm gonna make the motion up to 15,000.
Up to 15,000.
That's what I think John said.
Okay, so both motions specifically up to 15,000, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, both. 054-2022, the resolution for a special license permit for the Heritage Day Festival.
Thank you. So this is for the beer tent, which will be part of the Heritage Festival on September 10. So in order to serve beer, the township needs to obtain a special license from the Michigan Liquor Control Commission. This license is the same as we had to receive last year. And similar to last year, we will contract with Wildwood Family Farms to serve the beer for this event. And they have trained servers to also help with the prevention of sales to minors. And then just looking for intoxicated persons that maybe shouldn't be served. So in the packet tonight is the application and a resolution for your review and consideration. This resolution and application then has to be submitted to the Kent County Sheriff's Department for them to sign off on. The church, actually Cascade Christian Church, has to sign off as well, which they've already given their approval because the event is on church property. And so the liquor control requires the church to sign off. And then everything will be submitted to the Liquor Control Commission for their review. So this resolution of right here tonight is for the special license for the beer tent.
Sandra, were there any incidents last year to your knowledge with alcohol or anything?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Chief, you didn't have anybody pass out from too much booze?
No.
Okay, all right.
I make a motion to approve the resolution of special license permit for the Cascade Heritage Festival.
Support.
It's a motion by trustee McDonald, supported by trustee Shipley to approve the resolution for the special license permit for Heritage Day. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee Nordhook,
Yes.
trustee McDonald.
Yes.
Trustee Shipley,
Yes.
trustee Kessel,
Yes.
treasurer Paris,
Yes.
clerk Slater, yes, supervisor Lesbrunz.
Yes, motion carried. Next, 055-2022, the resolution for road closures for the Cascade Heritage Festival.
Thank you. As I mentioned, Hurley Street will be closed from Thornapple River Drive to approximately that first parking lot. That's the only road closure that we are requesting for this event. We're requesting that closure from noon until approximately 10 p.m. That will allow for setup before the event and then some cleanup after the event. So the road commission obviously is responsible for the roads and the road closures, but the board has to approve a resolution, which we will then submit to the road commission so that they can issue a permit for that.
I make a motion to approve the road closure for Cascade Heritage Festival.
Support.
It's a motion by clerk Slater, supported by trustee Kessel to approve the resolution for road closures for Cascade Heritage Festival. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee Kessel,
Yes.
trustee Shipley,
Yay.
treasurer Pierce,
Yes.
trustee McDonald,
Yes.
trustee Nordhook,
Yes.
clerk Slater, yes, supervisor Lesbrunz.
Yes. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 056-2022, resolution to approve the levy of the 2022 millage rates.
Great, thank you. So this is something that we have to do each year. This process actually starts when the 2022 budget was approved. At that point, you'll remember that the township approves a resolution to levy the maximum millage rates possible. We then have to wait until we hear about any Headley rollback from the county before we do a final approval. So this is a final approval of the millage rates for the 2022 millage, which funds our 2023 budget. The millages are calculated at the 2021 millage rate with the reduction fraction applied. So for example, if you looked at the general fund for the 2021 millage that funded our 2022 budget, our millage rate was 0.9607 mils. With our rollback factor, that millage, general fund millage for the 2022 millage, which will fund the 2023 budget, will be 0.9588 mils. And again, that is a artifact of our tax laws that ensures the tax growth of the township does not outpace the rate of inflation.
Move to approve the resolution to approve the levy, the 2022 millage rates.
Support.
It's a motion by trustee McDonald, supported by trustee Kessel to approve the resolution to approve the 2022 levy for millage rates. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee Shipley,
Yes.
trustee Kessel,
Yes.
trustee Nordhook,
Yes.
trustee McDonald,
Yes.
treasurer Pierce,
Yes.
clerk Slater, yes, supervisor Lesbrunz.
Yes. Motion carried. Item 057, 2022, sizing of the fire station capital improvements bonds.
Thank you. So our old friend, Fire Station number 1, we've got a couple of items for that on the agenda, and it'll be on the next couple agendas as well. But for this, the Township Board needs to decide the final bond sizing for the issuance of our 2022 capital improvement bonds. So you recall all the way back in May, the fire department design team, Williams Architects and Triangle Construction presented the design development documents and updated estimated budget for the Fire Station number 1 project. At that meeting, the Township Board authorized the construction document development bidding phase of the project. It'll culminate in the review and consideration of bids for the project tonight, as well as in early September. It's anticipated that the construction will commence in early fall and take approximately 1 year. Of course, that is dependent on our material procurement timelines. So the Township Board's also indicated that bonds will be issued as part of the funding for the project. So to this end, the board has already adopted the resolution of intent to issue the bonds, approved professional service agreements for bond counsel and financial advisory services, and adopted a resolution authorizing the issuance of 2022 capital improvement bonds. The resolution was drafted with the full initial budgetary amount. That was $9.8 million when that was first approved. We do know that has come up a little bit since then. But we did it at that to allow the Township Board the greatest amount of latitude when deciding what the final bond amount and term should be. So the next step in the process is for the board to determine the bond sizing capacity. Currently, the project cost is estimated at approximately $10.4 million, and we have expended approximately $250,000 of that estimate for architectural, engineering, and construction management services to this point. So the board's indicated the desire to pay the debt service in the proposed fire station bonds utilizing the increase in revenue sharing that came from our 2020 census population adjustment. So based on the Michigan Department of Treasury estimates, we will realize approximately $438,000 in additional constitutional revenue sharing over what was budgeted in our fiscal year 2022 budget. In the packet, I also included an amortization schedule over 20 years of what an expected revenue sharing allocation would be based on a modest 2% per year increase in our constitutional revenue sharing. So the remaining cost of the project is anticipated to come from cash on hand, otherwise known as fund balances. And there are 3 funds that are eligible to be used for the project: our general fund, our fire fund, and our ARPA funds. I included a spreadsheet of the current and anticipated fund balance of all of the township funds as well. So I requested our financial advisor, MFCI, to provide preliminary sizing reports for 6, 6.5, and $7 million bonds payable over 20 years at the current prevailing interest rate plus 25 basis points, which I believe represents a reasonable worst-case scenario. I'm happy to report that we have gone through our bond rating and we were rated AAA by S&P, which means that that worst-case scenario won't come to fruition, and we should be 25 basis points or more below the prevailing interest rates at this point, which will provide some huge benefits. So the estimates for annual debt service in here are very, very conservative at this point. So as I mentioned, I included a couple things in the packet for review, including the bond sizing reports, the 20-year projected revenue sharing report, and our fund balance report. So our township fund balance policy calls for the township to retain a minimum of 40% of operating expenditures in each fund. For the general fund, the estimated 2022 end of fiscal year fund balance is just north of 7.2 million. That represents 154% of expenditures. And that would be more if you remove transfers and capital improvements as well. For the fire fund, our estimated 2022 end of year fund balance is 1.2 million, which represents 41% of expenditures. For our ARPA funds, there's no fund balance recommendations. Those funds need to be appropriated by the township board no later than December 12th of 2024 and expended no later than December 31st, 2024, and expended no later than December 31st, 2026. And we have just over $2 million in ARPA funds. So due to the fund balance levels, it's not recommended that the fire fund be utilized for funding the project. The fund balance in the fire fund has been purposely drawn down in recent years in anticipation of the millage renewal and slight increase expected to be reviewed by the township board for consideration on the ballot in 2020. A combination of general fund and ARPA funds would be appropriate to utilize for the project. If you look at the anticipated debt service in year one for the bond sizings, a $6 million bond would be potentially $425,000. A $6.5 million bond would be potential $458,000. A $7 million bond would anticipate it to be just short of $500,000. So again, the anticipated fiscal year 2023 increase in revenue sharing is $438,000. It is anticipated that amount will increase about 2% year over year. That's the historic performance of our revenue sharing based on historical trends. I would say in general, the anticipated increase in constitutional revenue sharing will be able to service any of the debt amounts within the first couple of years of the bonds. And that's especially true now that we've been awarded our AAA bond rating through S&P. So the proposed debt sizing reports are estimates only, and I want to make sure you know that, but based on the recent experience of MFCI, once the bond proceeds are received, all of the bond revenue as well as the fund balances needed will be transferred to a project construction fund and utilized specifically for Fire Station Number 1 project. Once a decision is made about the amount of the bond proceeds, the remaining cash funds needed will ultimately be dependent on the bids received. All costs of the issuance of the bonds are paid from the bond proceeds. With that, the township board needs to approve a bond sizing for the issuance of our 2022 capital improvement.
Chief, it looks like we're not going to be dipping into the fire fund for this new station. Just let me advise you, don't play any nutshell games afterwards saying, oh gee whiz, I gotta have this because I forgot that, okay? Everything straight up. All right, Chief.
Mr. Kessel.
I took a look at this and knowing what restrictions there are and aren't on ARPA funds, I came up with a recommended bond issue amount of 6 million. And I came up with that. I just used rounding numbers. The fire station at 10.5 million, and we know it's a little less. We would use $1 million worth of ARPA funds. That still leaves us $1,035,000 to spend on other things that ARPA approved. And I think last week I sent something to Ben from the NMTA that is in support of more broadband internet coverage for the area and the state getting involved. So there may be funds for broadband coverage besides that, because that was something that we wanted to use part of that money for. And then we take $3.5 million out of the general fund, which would leave us about 3.7. And given the debt service coverage and growth in future years, I think $6 million would be the right size of the bond.
Not to get too far off the subject, but weren't we also anticipating the county doing something with the internet services? And so we may get some relief through that as well.
Yeah. I know that we wanted to spend money out of the ARPA money for internet expansion, and we have that money plus several or a couple other sources too. Sean.
Good deal.
Treasurer Pierce.
Ben, are you looking for a specific number between?
Yes, so we have to issue all of our reports to potential bidders tomorrow. So we need to put in that report what the size of the bond is going to be, so.
I mean, I think the idea of also $6 million makes a lot of sense. It's the least amount, but we've got a AAA bond rating. We know we've kind of been anticipating the fire station for about 20 years. So this is kind of like a shining moment right now. And we've really got a good fund in the general fund. And we specifically tried to, over the years, keep that for this exact moment in time. And so I think if we use $3 million, as Jim suggested, roughly $3 million from the general fund, that still leaves us a good coverage for any potential contingencies. I'm not talking about contingency of the fire fund, but something else that comes up that we need to use for the general fund. So that seems to be a very conservative approach, the 6 million, but also a very good approach because it's going to save us obviously on the debt service. It's something we can obviously handle with the general fund, and the ARP funds are kind of icing on the cake. So I too think that $6 million makes a lot of sense for the bond.
Making a motion.
Wait, I have a question. Can you walk through explain the ARPA funds and its relation to this agenda item?
So the ARPA funds are an eligible fund that we could use to fund the fire station.
And that is the, what, second installation of how much is in that account?
So there's just over $2 million, 2,035,000 and change.
And this is a legitimate, obviously a legitimate.
Right, but
use
are
of
we
those
making a
funds.
decision on, are we anticipating that that will be used for this fire station?
1 million.
1 million of it and 3.5 million from the general fund. And the difference would be $6 million to cover the cost of the fire station.
We have PFAS situation paid for.
Most of it, except the attorney fees and then the stuff that the township has paid for out of pocket, whole house filters and the Culligan water service.
Was a question.
Yes,
7.2 has been approved.
it has, yes.
Well, if you look,
I just don't know about the million of the ARPA funds. I'm not against it. I'm just not excited about it. It's not terrible.
I think it's a smart use of those funds.
Yeah.
And we're not even using quite half of them.
Mhm.
We could decide to do something else too, Grace,
So-
but it just seems to make sense to use 1 million.
So, and I guess I would clarify, the decision the board needs to make tonight is what the bond sizing is going to be, right?
But that's
If you guys
important to
decide,
consider.
yep, 6 million is going to be the bond. 3 months from now, you guys could decide, we're going to use all general fund, we're not going to use any ARPA funds, or we're going to use all the ARPA funds. I mean, you can still make that decision. That's your cash. But tonight you got to make the decision, what's the number going to be on those bond documents?
It's our cash.
I make a motion to size the bond at 6 mil.
Support.
It's a motion by trustee Shipley, supported by trustee McDonald, to issue a bond in the amount of $6 million for the fire station #1 capital improvement. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next, 058-2022. The Planning Commission process recommendations from the Planning Commission Subcommittee. Formal acceptance of by the board. Before we discuss it or have any questions, I just want to say thank you. The planning commissioners have been on fire and they were given a lot of problems, potentially expensive, high liability problems. And you guys as a group have done way more than what you'll be recognized for at the township level, but thank you. We see you and we really appreciate it. Appreciate it. We needed it and we appreciate it.
You've got your phone number.
I'd recommend the approval of the Plan Commission report on the subcommittee or the subcommittee report to the Plan Commission and to us. I think you did a great job, Ralph, and in your committee. I read through the minutes and very thorough, very thorough.
I support.
Treasurer Pierce?
If this had been in place 5 years ago, would Round Hill have happened?
Nope.
Was this necessitated by the colossal failure known as Round Hill?
Yes.
Was it easily preventable?
Yes.
Thank you. So it's a motion by what, trustee Shipley?
Mhm.
Kessel, supported by
Me.
trustee Shipley for the board to formally accept the subcommittee's recommendations regarding, or that are contained in the Round Hill Subcommittee report. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If you need anything at the board level, let us know, but we really appreciate your hard work. Thanks. Item 059, 2022. Consider the award of the Fire Station #1 construction early bid package.
I will start if that's okay. All right. So earlier this summer, the Township Board discussed releasing an early bid package for the Fire Station #1 project. The reasoning for our early bid package was extended procurement timelines for some roofing and electrical material and equipment that could directly impact the construction schedule's critical path and end date. So based on the discussion held by the Township Board, early bid packages were let for the following items: membrane roofing, electrical switchgear and generator, and fire alarm. Bidding documents were released in early July and due on July 26. The bid results are summarized in the staff report, and details with all of the dirt in them are attached to the staff report as well. So we'll note that the fire alarm vendors were issued an addendum that revised the specifications to allow manufacturers beyond just Honeywell. So the bid due date for the fire alarm was extended to Tuesday, August 9th, which was yesterday. So we don't have a recommendation for that yet, but we do have a recommendation for roofing. We received 4 bids. The apparent low bidder on bid day is Mickelin Roofing. The budget value of that was $288,000, came in at $271,000. Electrical switchgear, we received 2 proposals. The apparent low bidder on bid day was Excel Electric, a budget value of $53,000 and a bid value of $38,000. For generator, we had received 3 bids. The apparent low bidder on bid day was Total Energy Systems. We'll note that the low bidder does have lead times of 52 to 55 weeks. The budget value for this was $67,500. The recommended bid value is a little bit more at $93,000 plus $1,500 for a bid alternate. And our project team can explain a little bit about that when they get a chance. So the 3 recommended bids have a construction manager's budget value of $393,000 and a base bid of $384,000. Represents a 2.3% savings over the project estimate. Hopefully that trend continues. Bids for the fire alarm will be available for the Township Board to review at the August 24th meeting, with the remaining project bid award recommendations available for consideration in September. As I mentioned, the project team from Triangle is here tonight, as well as Fire Chief. They can answer any questions that you have. The bids being recommended for award total $384,000. Current total project estimates are $10.4 million. And as we just talked about, the project's being paid through a combination of bond proceeds and cash on hand. With that, I'll invite up the Triangle team and Chief Majors to add anything to the report that they'd like to.
Ben, could I ask you a question while they're coming up?
Sure.
You said Excel was 53 and the bid was 38. On this page, Cascade Fire Department 1, you got the bid, a budget amount at 38 and a bid at 29. What is it?
Guess I would turn that over to them.
Which amount is correct?
I'm sorry, can you repeat what, so it was on the electrical
Excel
switchgear?
Electric,
Mhm.
Ben reported the bid to be 53 and, or the budget amount to be 53 and the bid to be 38. On this sheet, it says the budget value is 38 and the bid was 29.
I believe that was correct as reported by Ben. I will have to double check on that.
So the number, the total budget number on that one sheet we looked at is not 393,504.
Would actually be higher than that, right?
Yes.
So it's, but they both balance out, Jim, to 384,440. That's what what the request is. So
Yeah,
I
but
see what you're saying.
Is that using 29 though, but Ben said it was 38.
Right, but the totals still both match up to 384,440. If you look at the bid tabulation,
Yeah, but what,
then summary, and then following page has the bid tabulation.
yeah, but if you use one number, it's not gonna add up to that, right?
Correct, you're right. I'm assuming that there's a spreadsheet and then I guess what I'm saying is, yeah, I agree with you. You're right that they're misstated, but the totals are the same. So I think the vote that we eventually have to have, and obviously we want Triangle to confirm this, is the $384,440. But you're right, it does show that the 271,200, the 29,000, the 84,240, adding up to 384,440.
Right.
Used. And maybe that's a typo on the analysis and conclusions.
Yes, I believe you're correct in that the overall summary page of the bid tabulations is correct. The recommendation letter for that specific package for the switchgear is what listed out the 53 and the 38 as I think what Ben was presenting.
So that's where I pulled that data from. So I guess the question is then, is the bid tab correct or is the recommendation letter correct? Because one of those will have to be.
Correct. The bid tab is correct. The recommendation letter for that package should be revised.
So that would be revised downward from 38,000 to 29,000, correct?
Correct.
Good catch.
Luckily, it's a good news catch, right? We're
Right.
gonna
Yeah, it's
I
not the other
just
way.
wondered because what, it wouldn't have been.
I got a question. Okay, Mr. Triangle,
Yes, sir.
in some of our past endeavors, including fire stations, we've had issues with maintenance ongoing. Are these bidders going to stand up behind their work? And is there a warranty on some of the work, i.e. the roofing, that it doesn't leak? Or that they'll take care of it?
Yeah, so all of our standard contracts will include a 1-year warranty for any workmanship. And then with that roofing system, I'm not sure off the top of my head, but it's usually a standard of a 10-year manufacturer warranty for the actual material.
Okay, and you've worked with these providers before then?
Yes, sir.
Okay, because if there's issues, we're gonna come knocking on your door.
Fair enough.
All right.
Good question, John.
I would say too, so our low apparent bidder for the roofing station also did the Portage Fire Station, so.
Okay.
They had the what, pitch roof? Or is this for,
So Miquelon does both pitch roof
Okay.
and flat roof systems, so there would have been some flat roof there as well, but reputable firm. All the bidders do go through a pre-qualification process, so we vet them from a safety standpoint, a financial capacity standpoint as well. So.
Chief, you're happy with these providers?
Yes.
All right. It's a correct answer. Thank you, chief.
thanks for all the details. All right, is there a motion or further discussion?
I make a motion to go forward and award the #1 construction early bid package.
Support that.
It's a motion by trustee Shipley, supported by trustee Kessel to approve the early bird package presented for the fire station #1 construction.
As explained with the deviations in the numbers.
Yes.
Okay, I did get my file open, so is there any clarification that's needed, or did we vet through that?
Was
We've
the
got your
budget-
telephone number.
Was the
All right.
budget amount 38 for electrical?
Correct, so 38 was the budget amount, Excel Electric was base bid at 29,000.
Not 53 then,
Not 50.
okay. Good.
Happy camper.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thanks for coming in person tonight.
Thank you.
Can't wait till we snap the cap on that old building.
Article 10, discussion items. Anything from anyone?
I have, I had a conversation with Mike Dryer from Dryer Welling Drilling. He was concerned about the, how we are informing residents in the PFAS area about where the pipes are going, who has to connect, do they have to cap their well? Apparently, they're not informed as to what the rules are. So, and he was also, of course, wanting to bid on capping the wells and EPA standards, of course. So he wanted to know about the bidding process for that. But a lot of the residents are in the dark as to, do they have to connect? Do they have to cap their wells? And it's that kind of stuff. So I think we need to do a better job getting the information out to that group. And find out where Mike would have to bid.
What is this came up at the PFAS subcommittee meeting, Ben, so what is is it up between the two plumbing companies or how? Can you walk
Yeah,
us through
so
that?
the bidding was for plumbers and the plumbing's already done. The plumbers are responsible for subcontracting out the well capping. So if he's interested in doing that work, he would need to contact either Bricks or McDonald Plumbing. And he would like to do that work.
How do we spell bricks?
So it's actually Brick, BRIK. They keep calling it Bricks, like the gas station.
I didn't know there was a. And so the city of Grand Rapids selected those two plumbing companies, is that right?
We did.
So
There's
then
only 3 plumbing companies that actually applied, and one of them, their bid was way out of whack.
Okay. And do we know where these two plumbing companies are with selection of companies that would cap off wells?
I don't know where they're at.
At one time, we talked about having a surface water ordinance
This is the $1 million question. This is gonna.
for those people that want to continue using their wells for watering. Did we go anywhere with that?
So myself and Supervisor Lesperance are deep in conversation with Doug Van Essen about that. But the nuts and bolts of it is right now, we do not have a groundwater use ordinance. So there is nothing that would force us to make people to connect. And there is nothing that would prevent them from continuing to use their wells for irrigation.
So that's good news for the residents all the way around.
At this point in time. However, as part of the process, at some point, the township board will probably be asked to consider an ordinance. So we've asked Mr. Van Essen to poke the bear again, because that process needs to be finished sooner rather than later. Because I agree, it's kind of wishy-washy for the residents right now.
Right.
You know, it's hard to tell them that, you know, yep, you can, this is what it is right now, but don't hold your breath because it could be something different 6 months from now. So we would like to get the process finished, but the fact of the matter is that it is a huge piece of our ability to negotiate if we need to with the airport. And it's not something our legal counsel is recommending we do on our own.
No.
Okay.
And the tricky part is this entire time we were anticipating that the payment was going to come from the responsible party, the airport. We weren't anticipating that the entire project, phase 1 and phase 2, would be paid for by state and federal grants. And so the airport naturally would want us to make that as part of the settlement, cap off wells, everyone's mandatory hookup to limit their liability and cut the time off as part of a settlement. But all of a sudden, the entire project was paid for with money, so we don't have to do anything as far
Tell
as.
the airport to go away, leave us alone.
Yeah, but it's gonna get trickier. So as of now, what we thought didn't happen. Everyone can make the decision whether or not they want to hook up, and they don't even have to cap their wells. But then that's tricky because that's as of right now. Realistically, the state and the airport are probably going to come back wanting us to do that. And then that's the carrot that we dangle to get paid for the attorney fees and the, what else? The Culligan Water, the whole house filters, there's probably more. So the township is put in the awkward position. We're in the middle of all of this, but the city installs the water, the state does the, regulation of health concerns. The airport doesn't do a whole lot, but they're, you know, the township's in the middle of all of it, but we're waiting on all these outside factors.
Okey dokey. That's all I need to know at this time. Because I'm sure I'm gonna have certain residents calling me and asking me.
100%. That's what's so frustrating about it. And then the other thing, this information is coming from our attorney. So then how much do you share with the public? It's a headache that sits directly in our lap.
But I think myself, Supervisor Lesperance, and the PFAS committee agree that we need to come up with some type of unified communication approved by our attorney to let them know exactly what's going on right now. And that's what we're working on.
Has any home been connected yet? Like what's the farthest?
So we had one person who has been calling me weekly for the past 3 months because their well was failing and they didn't want to replace the well because they knew they could hook up. So they were, the day the ink was signed, they had McDonald at their house and they were connected the following week.
So they have city water as of now?
Yeah.
And do you know when how quickly the rest of the homes in phase one will be able to connect?
So right now, there are 93 homes that are currently on the water main that exists in the neighborhood that aren't connected. So right now, they've been authorized to contact the plumbers and get their connections made. But that is going to be proactive on their part, right? There's going to be nobody from the township calling them, telling them they have to connect. Nobody from the city calling them and having them connect. They have to take the initiative to call the plumber and have that done. So that'll probably be the only people that get connected in 2022. Starting in 2023, early 2023, the phase one people that are getting water main in front of their houses will be able to start connecting.
Can you poke or reach out to Attorney Van Essen tomorrow to get that form where we're going to have just to offer the form and the communication regarding it technically not being mandatory, but could change?
Poke them a little bit today, but
Okay,
I'll
good.
poke them tomorrow.
Perfect. Thank you. We can take turns, but for right now, okay.
So do the people that can connect this year yet, do they know that they have to initiate the process?
Yes, yeah, everybody was sent a letter. So this letter specifically went only to the people that are authorized to connect right now.
Thank you.
Trustee Shipley?
Next thing on discussion. Ben, do we have any valuable update on the Egypt Creek fiasco?
I don't have a valuable update.
Oh, well, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Last thing on my list of discussion, I would like to keep this moving forward. That a couple months ago, I brought up the proposal that we utilize that big vacant field between the library going west as perhaps a gathering pavilion that could be used as a farmer's market in the summertime, perhaps an art festival center sometime during the year. I still think that'd be an ideal thing for the community to provide a facility that people could use almost on a daily basis. That's all I have.
I have two things to follow up with those, but go ahead, Clerk Slater.
Well, I think the library is working on that area.
I don't know.
I think it's different.
Also, I think, I don't know if a farmer's market would go here because Ada is really well established. I don't know. It's a
I don't know,
gamble.
but you know, we talked about keeping people in the community and making community a valuable asset for them. And there seems to be a greater number of people that are reaching out looking for farmers markets, whether it's downtown Grand Rapids or Ada or whatever.
Point.
So I think it might be valuable. And in the past, we've talked about having an art festival, for instance, somewhere in the vicinity of the library, but not impinging on the library's operations. So anyways, that's my 2 cents worth. I shall now go back to sleep.
Egypt Creek. I called our attorney today because I wanted to ask about the deer before tonight, just the status. And then I followed up about Egypt Creek and what the status was on his end. And remember how we had talked about, can we just issue fines based on violation of state law? Can we do that at the township level? So according to our attorney, his end, we issued this on our behalf. He issued the cease and desist letter to Egypt Creek back in June 14th, and then through that owner's attorney, they coordinated the site visit. So Brian and then, or excuse me, Director Hillbrands and Manager Swayze visited the property on June 14th. And then Attorney Homer hasn't heard anything from whether or not they were in violation or they weren't. So he was kind of waiting from the townships or on us, I guess. He thought, well, I thought if they were violating state wetlands or dumping in state wetlands, I was kind of waiting. I would assume that I would have been contacted. So he's waiting to hear from the township. And then, and he said, as far as finding that, we have two options, and this is what he's waiting for direction from. One, we can't find them. We can't find them unless we first file a civil suit. And there's a word for it. I don't have it, but basically we'd have to sue a property owner in the township that to have the ability to find them based on violations of state law. And two, probably the most straightforward way is to continue the pressure on Eagle at the state level. And he didn't have any idea of how intense that pressure has been, but he hasn't been contacted by anyone at the township to put pressure on, and he's willing to do that. He wondered who at Eagle, the township employees had been in contact with. So he's kind of waiting for us. I know it's a tricky issue, but I'd say that should be addressed quickly with him. Oh, and then I talked to two of the business owners at Peruse, and they mentioned that same exact thing, Trustee Shipley. I just asked them how business was and from the town, anything what their thoughts are on the township and what they could do. And they had a lot of really good ideas that that included maybe different types of crafts markets or in that area that they thought that the township could be doing a lot more for a fraction of the cost, I guess. There was a lot of creativity.
Even though we utilized that parcel for 4th of July, it seems to be kind of wasted as far as its potential. And there's also other things there. For instance, I know the library's got some great programs in which they fill their parking lots. But there's also many times I've gone by and there's not many cars in there. So you could have double use for their parking spaces.
They said that Cascade, they both live in Cascade, but they follow Ada Township on Instagram. And I'm not trying to push Cascade towards being Ada or anything, but this comes up.
We're better than Ada.
Obviously. But they said they had just been contacted to do a video. And they said the video is great. That's going to go on Facebook. But they said, they asked, how much does it cost you guys at the township level to bring in our communications team and all the cameras and the staff for that day to shoot the video with our economic development director? And then she goes, we'll use it on our website. It's great, but for the amount of money it costs you, which I didn't have an answer for. She goes, you could do it in 3 minutes with an iPhone, which is what Ada does. And you guys aren't on Cascade isn't on Instagram, but she said, look over at Ada. First of all, she said, no one's on Facebook except old people. I'm on. But then she said, but I can't believe you guys aren't on Instagram. And instead of spending all this money on a video that doesn't get a lot of views, she basically just said, check out what Ada's doing, Instagram, all these different activities, posters and businesses. And it was exciting, but it was also depressing. And I said, well, have you brought this stuff up or will you send me an email? And she said, well, we've had meetings about it and yes, excitement or open-minded, open to hearing it, but then nothing happens. So.
They are on Instagram.
The Cascade? That's good. I just think we could be doing more for our businesses I think Cascade could be doing more for our businesses. Not fancy, expensive things, but just creative things. On that positive note, any other discussion items that anyone wants to bring up?
Just looking for an update. I know you were Ben, you were working on finding out other planning commission pay scales be anything ready for our next meeting?
Yeah, certainly. So Katie finished up putting that document together. So as we anticipated, it's all over the board, right? So you have on one end of the scale, I think Grand Rapids Township pays $150 a meeting. The other end of the scale, you've got Grand Rapids or East Grand Rapids, it doesn't pay anything. And you have stuff all over the middle. So we got some good comparisons. I think there's about 10 communities listed on it. I'll email it out to everybody tomorrow, and then we'll put it back on the agenda, the next meeting to figure out what the board wants to do.
Thank you. Just asking because the planning commission knocked it out of the park again.
What about the engineering RFP? Did that go out? What's the status?
RFP is out, yep.
Did we hear anything back? I'm gonna,
Haven't heard anything back yet.
I guess it's a little premature for that.
Most RFP responses we get come in a day or two before it's due, so it'll be closer to September before we start hearing.
Just want to mention something that's not on tonight's agenda, but that came up last week and that will be on the next meeting's agenda. We've got Heritage Day set for September 10th. And then we also have the, I've mentioned it before, Virgil Westdale, the, I think he's 103, recently passed away, decorated World War II veteran, was part of the troops that liberated Dachau, and he was discriminated against and demoted because of his Japanese heritage. He was a longtime member of Cascade Christian Church. So the American Legion approached the township about, I think because he went to Cascade Christian Church and they wanted to name that pocket park that's kitty corner from Tuffy after Mr. Westdale. So it was on the agenda for the DDA either 1 or 2 meetings ago, but that's got to be approved by this board. So since it came up late in the day, or sorry, late last week, it's not on this meeting's agenda, but heads up, it'll be on the next agenda for discussion and board consideration. And then also the American Legion would like to pay a tribute to him at Heritage Day, take advantage of that event at that exact location to honor him at the park.
So that should be on the next meeting. Okey dokey.
Any other items for discussion? Public comments, Article 11. Mr. Whitley.
Chuck Whitley, 5030 Sequoia Drive. I got two different kinds of questions. In the presentation of the fire station, there was information presented that specifically said apparent low bidder on bid day. And I didn't hear anything that says that these are the proposed, bids to be accepted. But I did hear a vote saying to accept the bids. And so, the apparent low bidder on bid day just seems to be extremely qualifying. And I didn't see a follow-up thing that said, subsequent to further, in-depth review, these are the guys that we're recommending. So I didn't really hear a specific recommendation for award, but I thought I heard a vote for award. So.
Can you clarify, Manager Swayze?
Yeah, so if you get into the packet, there's 4 award letters in there. So the vote was to approve the award letters. There's actually award letters in the packet.
Okay.
Did we word that incorrectly? Okay.
And Triangle said that they've worked with all of them.
Mhm.
It's, and if they,
And they do bid interviews afterwards. So they interview all of the bidders.
Okay, it just seemed like there was a bit of a gap there and, if it's covered, that's fine.
Okay.
The other item has to do with the meeting tomorrow on the strategic plan. And there is a page there about the involvement of the Thornapple River Special Assessment District and having it involved in several activities as some sort of support, whatever. It's kind of a slippery slope there because the committee itself has never been approached about doing this sort of thing. We, of course, represent only those members upstream from the dam and nobody downstream from the dam, over towards Ada. So if, that committee is going to be piggybacked on, which, I think is okay, but, I think it's, again, kind of a awkward little gray area there where if you want to try to say, okay, we want to get some local people and hey, we just happen to have a committee here that has a bunch of local people. It's
30
not
seconds.
everybody that's a local people.
It's good
So-
feedback. Yeah, it can be reworded to be more.
I think that some people around your neighborhoods might have some input as well, and not just those in the special assessment district. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in person or virtually?
If anyone would like to participate in this public comment section that's participating via Zoom, please raise your hand or dial *9 if you're participating via phone. We'll wait a moment. I think that's it.
Okay, and moving on, Article 12, any manager comments?
Just a couple real brief items. So I meant to bring this up when we approved the Planning Commission recommendations report, but Brian Hilbrands and Brian Wilson and Madison spent most of their week last week training on our new BSNA PZE program, which is kind of the crux of all the recommendations that were made in that report. So they're all very excited about it. Once they feel comfortable in it, I've asked them to come do a demonstration, both with the Planning Commission and the Township Board, so you guys can get a better understanding of how this will help us keep organized in future years. So, already implementing those recommendations. So just wanted to thank Brian and Madison for doing that. And I also wanted to thank Clerk Slater and Deputy Clerk Chrissy Brott and Jen Jagger and everybody that worked at the election. It went incredibly smoothly. I was very impressed, both with all of the work they put in prior to and how things went day of. So kudos to you and your team, Clerk Slater, and looking forward to another smooth election in November.
At least at our end. Thank you. Board member comments.
I got a couple. Hey, Sue, did we have a, generally speaking, good turnout at the election?
Leave. I actually don't know what the total numbers are. Maybe Chrissy does.
Well, we're going to wait for obviously the canvas, which is almost done in Kent County, but I think that the percentage that's going around is 40%, which is pretty large for a primary.
For a primary,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. I'd like to thank everybody for coming tonight. I know that we lost a few people that left early, but you guys persevered. So I guess if you want a free glass of water, you can get one from the library. But thanks for being here. Once again, bring your neighbor next time too.
Thanks for coming and thank you for the hard work done at the Planning Commission. Quickly too, the turnaround. Fantastic. Thank you. Motion or discussion?
Motion made to put this meeting since we've covered everything of value.
Support.
Motion by trustee Shipley to adjourn, supported by trustee McDonald.
That's a
All in
big
favor?
order.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you.
Sure. Finance.